Today I have a knife review for you of the Vero Engineering Axon. This is a knife I pre-ordered and have been waiting for since August of 2020. I've had it about 2 weeks now and have been carrying it most days during that time. This is going to be a little bit of a long review, so settle in and enjoy. And if you enjoy the review, make sure you check out my social media pages where I mostly review flashlights and other gear, and sometimes a few knives too. And links to the Facebook pages, Instagram, and Twitter will all be below in the description. So who is Vero Engineering? He's one of the hot new knife designers of 2020. Joseph Vero has a background as a mechanical engineer and was working in the drone industry as a professional setting. Vero Engineering started as a hobby with some CAD sketches, but during its growth, it's allowed him and his wife to work on Vero Engineering full time, which I think is an accomplishment itself, especially with everything that's happened last year economically. The Axon here is his third knife design, and all knives are made by Bestech in China to Vero's tolerances and standards. Here is the packaging the knife comes in. It is a zippered taco pouch with padding, and this patch here is Velcro and can easily come off, which I think is really neat. Inside you get a microfiber cloth with the Vero Engineering logo on it, and you get a card with all your specifications that your knife has. And you can see mine is on the first run, and the designer, the Steels M390, it's got a belt and satin finish, and it's raw micarta. A couple size comparisons here with popular knives. I've got the Benchmade 940 and I've got the Spyderco Delica. The Axon on top, the overall length is 8 inches, weight is 3.67 ounces, blade length is 3.4 inches, cutting length is 3.5, cutting edge is 3.25, blade thickness is 0.135, and it's an M390 steel. It's a sheepfoot style blade with a full flat grind. The finish is available in hand rubbed, hand satin, or stone washed finish, and the lock is a titanium nested liner lock with a steel insert, and the handle materials at time of launch right now are micarta, G10, and Indicut carbon fiber. So I'm going to steal some ideas from Nick Sabaj on this and go through the good, the bad, the ugly of the knife. So the good. I had high expectations for this knife as the hype was real, and it was the most expensive knife to date that I've purchased. Fit and finish here, it really didn't let me down. I've got that black micarta finish with unoiled scales, which I really like, and the belt satin grind on the blade, which, see if we can get that pick up on my video lights here. You can kind of see it about now. Centering here is pretty much perfect, and there's absolutely no blade play on this thing. When I've got it out, it is rock solid. It's got a pretty intricate grind pattern on it. You've got the straight grinds here, and you've got grinds going in a different direction up at the top here, and then it picks up on this edge here, it picks up again what the blade did, and I think that's pretty neat. It just adds some intricacy. All the edges where you're going to be touching are nicely chamfered, but that gets less and less as you go towards the tip, which is kind of cool too. So back here where you're going to be touching, when you open it up, are nice and chamfered. As you go forward, they get a little bit sharper, and the edge here on the top of the sheepfoot is fairly sharp. These rectangular notches have been dubbed the name V-Spot. It's what the Vero Facebook community has named it, and they're blasted on the inside, so they have a different color and texture, which I think just adds to the appeal of the knife, and they are on both sides as well. I am a fan of the sheepfoot blade. I've got a Spyderco Smock here, which is a little bit different style sheepfoot, but similar. I just really like it. It's a slicing machine. Everything that I've opened, from boxes to breaking down some cardboard, works really well. The belly portion of the blade here is flat and in the Wharncliffe style, giving you a lot of cutting surface, and it should be easy to sharpen on a stone or other sharpening system if you need to. There is a nice small sharpening choil here that you can see that works pretty well. Sheepfoots aren't your best piercing blade, but in my EDC I don't have a lot of need for that. Even when opening envelopes, I find this work. Instead of slipping your blade under and cutting once, you might take 2 tries. Each knife is individually serialized down at the bottom of the tang of the knife, and there is jimping up here at the top along with a little Vero logo, which is kind of cool too. When I first picked this knife up out of the package, the weight was the first thing to hit me. It's lighter than I expected for its size. My scale says it weighs 3.67 ounces, and that's thanks to extensively milled titanium liners, which I've got a picture of here. For the size of blade, this is fairly lightweight and still feels solid in your hand. For me, it works really well. So action. This knife runs on ceramic bearings inside brass races, which make for a super smooth action. This is the factory action here, and I can open it up and just rockets in. I haven't taken it apart, added oil, or messed with the pivot tightness at all. This is exactly how it came. There's no grit inside the action, and there's really no break-in needed. There are multiple deployment methods, which I'll talk about here in a minute. The knife does have a detent ramp inside, which is kind of cool. It's my first knife with a detent ramp, and it doesn't really fall open under normal uses. That said, if I hard flick it with my entire arm, which I won't do here on camera, obviously, because you can't see that, or if I shake it really violently, I can't can get it to kind of come open, but I mean, it's got to be violently, and I'm moving the knife a foot or two at a time. I can't just shake it with my wrist and get it to come open. So that detent is strong enough for normal situations, normal uses. Lockup on my knife here is about 40%, and there is a steel insert on the titanium nested lock bar that you can see in there, so no lock stick concern. The closing action here is good too. It closes with pretty much being drop shut, which again, it's hard to show on camera, but it does take a little bit of wrist movement to close. And I think it will be completely drop shut if I were to tweak the pivot a little bit or take it out, clean it, and oil it with high quality like oil like Nano Lube or something like that. I do like when you're actually in use here, I like to put a little bit of back pressure just to get it started here. And the sharpening choil hits my thumbnail, so I never really feel like this is gonna drop shut and cut me or anything, because that sharpening choil just hits my thumbnail and makes it safer. There are multiple deployment methods with the Axon. It's designed as a front flipper here at the top, and that jimping on the spine allows you to open it multiple ways. You can open it with your thumb and just open it like that. That's easy to do one-handed for me. I can't quite get the light switch method to work with my finger over the top very well one-handed. I can do it two-handed though, and it's still new to me. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. You guys let me know in the comments. For me though, I probably will use these V-spots to open it with my thumb, as you can see there, pretty easily. And you can also flick it out the side there. I'm not used to doing that, so I'm not very good at that either. Another thing I really liked is the wide selection of materials that the Vero is offering on most of his knives, but especially the Axon. At pre-order, you had 3 blade finish options on the M390 steel: a tumbled, a belt satin, and a hand sanded satin, 2 colors of unoiled micarta, red G10, and an in-cut carbon fiber. Since then, he's offered or teased that DLC will be an option for the blade, clip, and body. Brass scales will be offered too, and Bacon Damascus has been talked about on the blade here, which I think would be really cool. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Damascus back spacers or clips being offered eventually too, as it's an option for most of his other designs. With the wide selection of options, it feels more like a custom knife than a production model to me. It's also been said that Joseph's going to have scale swaps available after purchase, so I'm thinking I might pick up the carbon fiber or the red G10 too. I like that all the scale materials ship unoiled too, and you can let the knife either take your own patina as you use it or oil it if you prefer. The micarta adds a nice amount of grip here. It doesn't feel like cold like titanium does or anything like that, and it's just nice and grippy. And this micarta has been milled ever so slightly towards the clip here, so you get some nice pattern on here, and that's just kind of neat. And I think the blade steel here of M390 is a great choice for this price range. Not so good. One of the areas I think that there is some room for improvement on future generations of the Axon is access to this nested lock bar here. I have to press my thumb in here fairly hard to get it to move over. There's just not a lot of room. This scale on the opposite side makes it a little bit hard to access. I think if you had large fingers, I think this would even be more difficult. I think possibly changing the relief angle or even the relief amount on the opposite scale here would make this a lot easier and improve the user experience when closing the knife. One of the reasons the Axon was slightly delayed was the screws. They were changed at the late stages of production from T6 on the prototype to T8 on the production models, making the design a little bit more robust for owners who plan to swap the scales. All the screws and the pivot area here are stainless steel, and there's just 4 screws in the design here. You've got 2 on the outside and 2 in the other scale. You also got 2 underneath the clip, which you can't really see there. All the screws are a bright polish, which is okay, but I think they'd be a little bit nicer if they were matte, at least with my configuration here. On my knife, the screws were a little bit inconsistent in depth, which I guess is something that isn't an uncommon problem in the industry on popular designs of knives. I tightened them, which helped a little bit, but I've still got 2 here, especially this one and this one here, that stick out just a little bit proud of these scales, and that's just a little bit disappointing. It doesn't seem to be a widespread issue based on other owners that I've chatted with, and it's pretty minor. I feel a little bit bad listing the clip as a not so good because this is a good clip, but let me explain a few small issues I had with it, and that's really if I'm nitpicking. The clip is mounted internally with hidden hardware and solid titanium. As you can see here, it's mounted for right side carry only. There's no screws in the scales on the other side or in the titanium. It's not ultra deep carry carry, but it is deep carry. There's about 10 millimeters of the knife sticking out of your pocket, and tension here is good on the titanium lock bar here. My issue comes with the amount of relief that's in the clip here. It's not a lot. Depending on the pants you're wearing, you may have to either pry up on the clip to get it into your pocket just slightly, or hold your pocket to keep it from bunching up when carrying the knife. And I've got a picture here of what it was like when I just shove it in normally in one pair of jeans. It's not a major deal, but something that you do kind of get used to, and it sometimes doesn't allow the knife to get down as low into the pocket as you hope it is for secure carry. This is still better than a loose clip in my opinion, and fairly easy to get used to. Ergonomics in my hand are decent. If I'm holding the knife like this, I do get a little bit of a hot spot with this where the clip flares out here in my hand. I can choke up on the knife and that really isn't as big of a problem, or I can just make sure it's between my fingers here when I'm holding it and it's not an issue. And that's really if I'm gripping the knife really tight. That clip hot spots are never an issue that really bugs me. I'm not using my EDC knife for hours and hours cutting down boxes or something like that. I'm using it to open packages and smaller tasks that it's not really a factor. The ugly. There isn't really a lot negative to say here about the Axon, but the availability of any Vero design is a bit of a negative. They sell out in 2 to 3 minutes tops. Everything from the various knife designs to the pry bars, you just can't keep them in stock. It's a good problem to have, but not great for consumers. The result is these are hard to get, and even on the secondary market, if they do pop up, they're hot and they're priced accordingly. This isn't new to other knife manufacturers or things in the EDC world, but it's just a little frustrating, especially if you're a fan trying to get one. The other thing here is the time it took to get my Axon. I ordered in August 2020, and it showed up late January 2021. 5 months is a long time to wait for a pre-order for a production knife. I knew it was going to be a while, but I didn't quite expect it to be so long, and I was even in the first wave. Not everyone who did the pre-order the same day I did have their knives just yet. My conclusion is that I'm really happy with my purchase of the Vero Axon. I was worried after waiting for months and seeing the continual hype of other Vero designs that it wouldn't live up to the hype that I had built in my head, but so far it's not been the case. I see myself holding on to this one for quite a while and it being a staple in my EDC rotation. I think this is about as close as you can come to a custom knife, but with high-end production level prices. Production location doesn't matter much to me as long as the quality is there, and Vero and Bestech have achieved that. This is a really nice design that's been well executed. Should you have issues, Vero Engineering is easy to get a hold of. They have a really active social media presence too, with live streams and updates on pre-orders, upcoming models, and more. That's one thing I always like to see when paying for a higher-end EDC item, is that the maker's accessible not only for service, but it also helps create a community feel and draws at least me more into the brand. So let me know in the comments if you've been able to pick up any of the Vero Engineering knives and what you think of the Axon design here. As always guys, I appreciate your support of this channel, your likes, your subscriptions, and your comments. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer them for you. I'll see you on the next video review soon.